So we have a new report here with concerns about the housing market. Housing markets like Tampa and Austin have seen a recent slowdown. There are some neighborhoods that are actually seeing prices fall as a result, but I was under the impression things were going great here in the North Texas housing market. Well, let's ask Jeff Ostrowski. He's a Bankrate housing market analyst. And look, I know all real estate is local, but compared to the rest of the country, I think we're doing pretty good here in North Texas.
Yeah, well, it's intriguing. A lot of the formerly hot markets in Texas and in Florida have really softened a lot. So I'm just looking at some numbers here. So Dallas-Fort Worth prices flat from first quarter of 2024 to 2025. Austin was down a little. San Antonio, I know not North Texas, but down more. Abilene actually was one of the weakest markets in the country, down 5% over the past year.
Whoa, people still live there?
Kind of a mixed bag. But definitely some softening in the Sunbelt states that had been doing well during the pandemic. And then surprisingly enough, a lot of the Midwestern and Northeastern markets that had been sort of languishing are now doing well. They're seeing prices rise.
Well, I love breaking stories like this down, Jeff, because home prices going down is real good for people who are trying to get into home ownership and not so good for people who are already in home ownership. So I kind of have a divided loyalty here in my audience. Do I want you to have a cheaper house, or do I want you to sell your house for more whenever you get rid of it?
Yeah, well, and that's always the conundrum. About 2/3 of Americans own their homes, so I guess it's good for them when the value goes up, but then the question is, okay, what do I do with that value? If I sell my house, I'm going to have to go find a different place to live. So I would say that this is probably good news for the overall economy. Just the fact that these superheated home prices that we've been experiencing for the past few years are cooling down. It's great if you're a realtor, if you're a home builder, or if you're a homeowner and you can manage to sell and move to a less expensive place. But in general, it just kind of complicates an economy when home prices shoot up like they have over the past 5 years. So I think maybe the market taking a breather is going to be a good thing overall.
Well, the economic foundation behind some of these numbers is often just plain old supply and demand. So in the places where it's falling, is it because there's less demand there, or is there a new burst of home construction?
It's the latter for sure, and I think you cheated. You looked at the answers before you asked that question. It's definitely like you mentioned a couple of markets, Austin and Sarasota, Bradenton, Florida. Those two markets have some of the highest paces of home construction based on population in the country. And so it sort of makes sense that in Austin, you've seen home prices soften. In parts of Florida, you've seen home prices fall. And that's just because there's a lot of new supply coming online. But again, as you mentioned, these numbers are always a double-edged sword. So the U.S. housing market has been chronically short of supply. So it's really not a bad thing that these markets are softening, and that their prices are soft because they're getting what everyone wants, which is more housing, more construction.
We're talking with Jeff Ostrowski from Bankrate about the price of housing going down in some places, still kind of going up for us, but you said we were pretty much flat for the year?
Yeah, and as you mentioned, home prices are so localized. It just really depends on the neighborhood. It depends on the zip code. It depends on the condition of the house. So I'm looking at the latest National Association of Realtors quarterly numbers. They're showing a 0.1% increase in median sale price in the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area, so just under $378,000 in the first quarter of this year, so essentially unchanged from last year. And then, you look at some place like Abilene, where prices are down 5% over the past year. And I mentioned there are some markets in the Midwest where prices are still rising, like Topeka, Kansas, up 20%, Peoria,
wow,
Illinois, up 18%. And that's the opposite opposite market condition of what we were just describing. There's very little new construction in those places because there's just not the job growth. There's not the in-migration to support it. And so the big builders are really looking at in-migration. They're looking at population trends. And so they're building in places like Texas and Florida because that's where a lot of people are moving. And they're not building in the Midwest and the Rust Belt because there just isn't a lot of job growth or population growth in those areas.
All right, good stuff. Jeff Ostrowski from Bankrate. I appreciate you helping us out on the James Show.
All right, thanks a lot.
My next guest is going to get you all caught up on foreign affairs because there is a lot going on outside the borders. It's David Hamilton back on from America's Future Series. Welcome back, David.
Hello, sir.
Before we get into the news, let's talk about the event that you had last week. It was on my birthday, but I didn't get a cake. Very disappointing. But what a great event.
Yeah, it was great that it was on your birthday. It was Flo Groberg's birthday, and he had a baby that night, and so did Brandon Gill.
Brandon Gill had a baby?
I
know it's his wife. Don't say that.
First, yeah, I know, I'm teasing. But yeah, no, so they both did. Yeah.
David Hamilton's got jokes today. And I had never been to that ranch. What was that, the Circle J?
T Ranch?
Yeah, Circle
T Ranch, yeah.
What an amazing setup.
Hillwood thing. Yeah, it's a beautiful place, yeah.
And did you tell me Pete Sessions was going to be there? Because if you did, I didn't remember. I was kind of shocked that he was the headliner.
No, he was there, longtime friend and supporter of the America's Future Series. And, so we had a good group there. Secretary of the Navy, all kinds of good folks.
Yeah, so people who aren't up on it, Pete Sessions, House of Representatives. When are you having the next event, David?
Let's see, D.C., we're working with the Space Force. We have the head of the Space Force and others. Hopefully we're going to honor Buzz Aldrin that evening. And we have our Space Innovation Summit at Amazon's World Headquarters. Then we'll be back here. That's July 29th. September 30th, we're here at the Frontiers of Fright Museum.
Oh, yeah.
And we're honoring Admiral McRaven. General Petraeus is hosting that. Some of the same guys, the Ross Perot's and Darcy Andersons and others, we're honoring Bob Pragada of Jacob with our 5-star award for supporting our military. And we have a whole bunch of military and defense leaders coming for our joint domain summit that day. So we've got a couple different events coming. Now they're all under the umbrella of the University of North Texas under the National Security Economic Strategy Initiative. So we're joint forces, and I now work for the university.
Okay. I got to hear a presentation from the guy who started the Space Force. That was pretty cool. And the other thing I liked about your event is when I was just walking around meeting people, there's a lot of defense contractors and supply chain people in there. And I was kind of jokingly asking around, hey, you know where I can get a missile? And there were like 4 or 5 people that were like, yeah, I can get you a missile.
Yeah, well, the head of aeronautics for Lockheed Martin was there. Yes, sir. He can hook you up.
All right. Now let's get into some of the news, and I'll let you know about these events as they get closer because that was a fun one, and I'm definitely going to go to ones that are within driving distance, David. But right now, Ukraine and Russia, are they making a deal to end their war? Are these peace talks still going on?
Well, let's have perspective. I mean, this war is 11 years old. It started in 2014. So Yanukovych, I can never say his name.
Yanukovych.
Prime Minister. Thank you. See? Yeah. He was very pro-Russia. The Rebellion of Dignity kicked him out, and that caused the pro-Russian faction in Ukraine to sort of rise up and end up with the sort of annexation of Crimea. So this has been going on for a really long time, and the idea that this would be easy and not perhaps don't have some fits and starts is kind of silly. So we don't know, but if we're not talking about it, if they don't get together in Istanbul and we try to hash this out, our only other alternative is to continue this bloody, bloody war. So I'm really proud of Zelensky despite Putin not thinking he would show up, he said yes. And we got to get them in a room together, the two leaders, to have a shot in blank of actually coming up with a solution to this. So I'm hopeful. It doesn't mean we're not going to be a little skeptical. Doesn't mean we're not going to trust and verify? How about don't trust and verify? But we have to do this, and I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to come to an end, a reasonable negotiation to the end and the stopping of the slaughter.
Well, if we pull out and withdraw our support, what is Russia's incentive to not continue this until they get everything they want?
So, behind closed doors, behind the scenes, I don't think Russia thinks that we're going to completely bail on Ukraine. We haven't done it yet. We're still sending them money and trying to support them. And we're trying to create hopefully we're trying to create a situation where it's better for Russia to be friendly, to be on our side, to do trade with us, sell oil and gas, get back in with the European community, et cetera, and break them away from China. So we ultimately have to turn Russia away, instead of being an enemy, but to being an ally, because our mutual ally, the only real existential threat to the United States and to Europe, is China. And this is hopefully a step in that long-term direction. And it is in nobody's interest, including the Russians, for them to not be doing business with the people with the money and the goods and the needs, and their biggest customers, which is Europe and the United States.
So let's talk about the other hot spot, India, Pakistan. You know, these two neighbors hadn't been getting along very good, just historically speaking. There's a little bit of a flare up. Now we're told there's a ceasefire. Will it hold?
I doubt it. I think there will probably be a little flare-up, and then it'll hold again, and then ultimately, because this is the way these things go, they ping-pong a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a flare-up, somebody escalates something. But long-term, again, it's in everyone's interest for them to have an agreement, and they both have nukes. So at the end of the day, they really have to come to an agreement.
All right. That's just a scary situation because both of these guys have nukes.
And they both don't like each other and haven't for centuries. So these are difficult, challenging times. These are difficult situations. But again, if there's no alternative to war, if there's no opportunity for peace and for collaboration and trade seems to be the single biggest medicine to solve these kinds of issues and to soothe these headaches. If we can find ways to do business together, we tend to not kill our best clients.
Yes, nothing brings countries together like good old-fashioned capitalism. God bless them. The profit motive is stronger than any army. Are we really going to get a deal with China where they will open up their markets to some of our industries? Because that would be huge for our economy.
Well, if we get any movement at all, it'll be good. I mean, we've had 10, 20 years of unfair trade practices, and not just tariffs, but non-trade barriers, things like currency manipulation, quality standards that were unfair, subsidies and things like that. And so if we can get closer to a level playing field, that will be great. But this one's more complicated because we're also in this deal working on fentanyl, because they have been trying to undermine us with fentanyl. They're even shipping those machines that make the fentanyl to Mexico and other countries, foregoing their own profits simply to flood our market with as much fentanyl as they can, because they know that hurts us. So there are a host of complicated issues that it's going to take 90 days or so to work on. So this sort of pause where we don't hurt each other as much on trade, on tariffs is good. It gives us time to sort of work on some of these other issues. So there are lots of issues that make this one a little more complicated, but I do think ultimately by putting some pressure on them, they're coming to the table, and their economy is suffering, and the opportunity is ripe, the situation is ripe for us to actually come to a meaningful agreement.
Didn't we already do this with China? The West had the Opium War with China, and so this is sort of like a reverse opium war. They're flooding the opiates on us.
Yeah, the British actually famous for about 100 or so years ago. It's called the Opium War, and the Chinese refer to that period of time since then as the century of humiliation. That's their term for it. They are very angry at the West. They feel they've been denigrated, unloved, and dismissed. And they would like to see their culture, their country, everything about their country. They want to be the strongest military, political, and economic powers in the world. And they work at that every day. And you've probably heard me say that I think of them as pinky in the brain. They wake up every night thinking about how are they going to take over the world. And they work that those projects diligently, very strategically. We have to be aware of that because of this long history, and we have to find a way to work together better. We're never going to make China America. They're never going to be truly Western, thinking that would happen. But back to this earlier discussion, if we can find ways to benefit each other and we stand firm, we can't let them run roughshod over us. We can come to an accommodation where it would at least have closer to a level playing field.
So hopefully this new opium war turns out a little more or ends a little more cleanly than the last one. But the problem with China is they've made trade deals before, and they have not a very good record of sticking to them. But how do you enforce it?
We have to enforce it. We didn't have a very good track record of enforcing it the last time we negotiated one like this. We did not hold them accountable. And holding people accountable and pushing back can make people uncomfortable. But the alternative is simply to lose. So
Right.
I'm encouraged by the fact that we are pushing back and we're trying to hold them accountable. If we could hold them accountable to the original standards we had about 6 years ago, we'd be in a lot better shape. So getting back to that, and then it is an ongoing battle, having discipline, et cetera, and the resolve to hold our trading partners, especially those that don't like us very much, accountable. It's not easy, but it must be done.
So let's move over to the Middle East. We have the final American hostage back from Gaza. How many hostages are left? Do we know?
Now, there are several there in Gaza, and that is why the pressure is still on, and that's why the Israelis just bombed a hospital, which, of course, was being used as a center for Hamas, and that exposed a tunnel. So you may have seen that story.
I did not.
Yeah, so and it's unfortunate the Israelis have to prove to people that they're not just blowing up hospitals because they like to. Right, so there seems to be this notion that the Israelis like to randomly go around and blow up hospitals.
Oh, yeah, is this a genocide? You know, David, they're trying to wipe them out.
So, the Hamas and its leaders do, in fact, use these facilities, et cetera, and their human shields, their martyrs, to protect them. And it's unfortunate. And I think the Israelis are doing as good a job as they can. They're not always perfect, but they are trying to weed out the Hamas leaders. And of course, as I've said before on your show, this real answer is to let the civilians out through the southern border, and the Egyptians have to be held accountable, and the rest of the Middle East has to be held accountable for providing another alternative, a place for those refugees to go, which they're not doing. Okay, so it's going to take a village to make that happen, and there's been a certain resolve and pressure from Iran and others to not, because they actually want to martyr as many of their own people as they can.
All right, so where do we find your work outside of WBAP now? You know, you have a merger going on with America's Future Series and UNT. Is it the same website, or do y'all have a new name for this stuff?
So we do have our old website, the America's Future Series website, which shows some of our events, which are being transitioned to a new website under the National Security and Economic Strategy Initiative. It will eventually be a center in the school with a certificate program, education program. I'm teaching the first course in the fall. We'll have an executive ed program and a research institute, or research and policy council. So all of that's being built. I'm very proud of the university, because in very order and under 90 days, it has stood this center up at the beginnings of the center. We've had this first event, and we have these 3 other events that we're hosting over the course of the year. So they'll be able to find us very soon on the UNT website, that they can reach us now currently through America's Future Series.
All right, well, onward and upward, David Hamilton. Good to see you doing well, sir.
Thank you, sir. Really appreciate it.
All right, and I'll let you know about his next event. If you're looking for a guy who can get you a missile, that's the place to go. One of your neighbors died this week to street racing. 2 guys decided that they were going to take off and see who's the fastest, and one guy accidentally veered into oncoming traffic, hit a guy in a pickup truck. The guy in the pickup truck dies. The driver is in stable condition. He had to be taken to the hospital, but he's going to live. The other driver just drove off into the night, never to be heard from again. What a terrible, terrible hobby these people have. What awful human beings think this is cool. I realize this is probably younger, and it's almost certainly guys. Girls aren't this stupid. Only guys are this just completely reckless, especially with their own lives. Some of this, look, I know cars are cool, and I part of me gets it. It's the adrenaline rush. You got adrenaline junkies. It's, how you get your thrills. It takes a boring day and makes it exciting. You've done something death-defying. Of course, that's going to get your adrenaline running. But it also kills people, and it also kills innocent people who are involuntary third parties to your terrible decisions. I wouldn't care so much if there were street drag races and these people were only killing themselves. Like if he had veered off the road and hit a tree and killed himself, it would still be a tragedy, but not like this, not as bad as this. And I don't know what the solution is for it. We already charge them with, probably involuntary manslaughter or vehicular manslaughter. Do you up the charges on it? Would that really make them stop? I'm not sure if that would work. All I can think to do is maybe can we try and steer these adrenaline junkies into some sort of activity that doesn't kill other people? Like go skydive. That way if something goes wrong, you just splat on the ground and, worst thing that happens is someone has to come pick you up with a spatula, but at least no one else dies. You could ride an angry bull. That's what we do out in Bug Tussle. If you want to have a thrill, go get on the back of an angry animal that weighs 1,800 pounds. Look, if you're a city kid, you can get your excitement in other ways. You can go walk through Oak Cliff in a jacket made from $100 bills. Why don't you try that? If you need adrenaline so bad. And that's one of the nice parts about motorcycle riders. Sometimes I'll gripe about motorcycle guys, especially when they have the really loud motorcycle that everyone on the block can hear and you're ruining people's lunch. Those guys are jerks, whatever. But for the rest of you guys, what an exceptional level of danger you are choosing for your transportation options. In fact, I had a friend who died from a motorcycle crash last year. And it was almost like, well, at least he didn't hurt anybody else. Unlike these jerks who thinks, oh, this will be fun. I'll show him. See how fast my car is. Did you just watch Fast and Furious and you thought that was a documentary? You think that's cool? You think you're Vin Diesel? And how did Paul Walker die? So, yeah, riding motorcycles is exceptionally dangerous, but at least you're only hurting yourself. And I don't have the answer for this. Anybody got some help for me? Because I don't know how you solve this. 800-288-9227. And don't call in and say, make it illegaler. It's already illegal. You can't. There's got to be a better solution than that. 800-288-9227. This is Charles in Bug Tussle. You're on WBAP. What do you think, Charles?
Hey, James. Aside from the criminal charges, reckless endangerment, all of those things, if these guys get out there and race and they murder someone, or let's just say they kill someone on accident, man, after all of the criminal charges, after they serve their time, 10-year minimum, no driver's license. Now, I know a lot of criminals couldn't care less if they have a driver's license or not.
Right.
But a lot of people who live in Texas especially, man, you can't get from point A to point B if you don't have a driver's license.
Oh, yeah, you can. Illegal immigrants do it all day, every day.
Yeah, okay. That's the key word, illegal.
Yes.
All right, you've already got these guys who have been accused of a crime, or they've been, they've done some jail time, and then they get out, 10-year minimum, no driver's license. They get caught again, straight back to jail for the reason they were there the first time. The consequences have to outweigh the reward, and they have to be stiff. And if people don't come up with some kind of penalty that makes these people think twice before they punch it and kill someone, then nothing is ever going to change.
Well, let me explain myself a little bit better on why I think making something illegaler in this situation isn't going to work. Because, they're like, they wouldn't risk going to jail for 10 years or they wouldn't risk losing their license for 10 years. Bro, they're risking their life when they do this. You think a 10-year driver's license suspension is going to deter someone over and above losing their own life?
Yes.
Okay.
Because a lot of these people do not think anything. Look, man, when I was young, when I was in my 20s, I knew everything. Nothing was going to happen to me. Everything was going to be fine. All of a sudden, something bad happens and the consequences get up, and you're going to think again. And if you don't think again, then hell, man, firing squad time. If they're just going to keep getting out there and causing problems, then they're the problem. Remove the problem. Take the problem out of the equation.
Okay. Firing squad, not just put them in prison for life for 20 years.
Why waste the money?
Okay. Well, that's Charles in Bug Tussle. Are you really from Bug Tussle, or are you just pulling my leg?
No, brother. I'm from north of Bug Tussle. I'm even deeper Bug Tussle than you are.
What are you, like Mineola or something?
You nailed it.
Oh, did I? There's not a whole lot of places north of Bug Tussle. It's a pretty small area. Well, that's funny. One more call on this. Lee in Fort Worth, what's your solution for street racing?
Hey, gentlemen. Thanks for taking my call. Here's my issue. I drive from Dallas to Fort Worth every day, commute back and forth, morning and evening. Motorcyclists is my big thing. They want you to give them the road. They want you to give them respect, and I have no problem with that. There's 90% of them that deserve what they get. They get what they deserve. I give them the road, and I'm courteous to them. But then there's the 10% that cut up between your cars when you're stopped at a light and backed up traffic, and they're coming up beside your car and almost take off your mirror.
Yep.
And talk about that, and we talk about the motorcyclist that was speeding the other day or this past week and killed a 10-year-old kid. Come on. And of course, he died too. I'm not.
How do you stop it though? Real quick, in 30 seconds, how do you stop it?
Police need to do their job, and let's police our areas. Let's turn the police loose and let them do their job. Quit restricting them.
Okay. All right.
I know they're not out there. They can't be everywhere. We understand.
No,
that.
Lee, you sound great over in Fort Worth. I'm just out of time, so thank you very much, sir. Get ready for Main Street Fest, a timeless Texas tradition presented by the Bank of the West, May 16th through 18th in Grapevine. That's this weekend. 3 days of nonstop fun headlined by the incredible Neil McCoy. He's a great guy, and if you want free tickets to go see Neil McCoy at Main Street Fest in Grapevine, it's one of the contests we have going on. Text the word STREET to 800-288-9227. If you already have us in your phone, it's the same phone number you call in on. Text STREET to 800-288-9227. Also, I got like 30 requests for the Rhino list in the Texas State Legislature, Texas State House of Representatives. If you haven't got the list yet, I'll get it to you. It has a list of all the Republicans you sit down there that turncoat and vote with the Democrats on all these important issues, and a map to see if you live in their district. So just send me an email, james@wbap.com, or a Facebook message. Either way you get to me, I'll get you the link. It's kind of important stuff. All right, stick around. Mark Levin's coming up next. I'm James Parker. This has been The James Show on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP.